The story is told that when Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, came to the United States, she was meeting with the president, I believe it was Richard Nixon, and Nixon said to her, Madam Prime Minister, I'm a president of a country of 300 million citizens. And immediately she responded and said, well, Mr. President, I'm the Prime Minister of a country of 3 million prime ministers. Jews, we have leadership in our blood. We're always ready to lead, to tell others what to do, how to do things better, how to do things differently. But how do you become an effective leader? How do you become a leader that's a true leader, not someone just trying to take the bull by the horns? I believe in this week's Parsha and last week's Parsha we learned lessons for leadership. We also are ending Hanukkah. Today is the last day of Hanukkah. There's lessons to leadership to learn from Hanukkah as well. The first, I'd like to point out two principles for leadership, though there are surely more than that. Principle number one is learned from last week's Parsha, Parshas Vayeshev, and this week's Torah portion, Miketz, teaches us another very important one. The two protagonists, the two main characters of these Parshiot, which deal with the sale of Yosef, and all that happens subsequently until the brothers are reunited with Yosef. The two protagonists are Yehuda and Yosef, Judah and Joseph. Parshas Vayeshev, we learn about each of them, but something very specific about each of them. I dare say what we learned about each of them is a great challenge that they went through and how they dealt with it. First, the story of Yosef. Famous story of Yosef. Yosef sold into captivity, and one of the ministers in Egypt buys him, and he rises up to be his attendant, taking care of all his affairs. The wife of this minister is finds Joseph very attractive, and she begins to attempt to seduce him. And it's a long process. And he keeps on refusing her advances and explaining to her why it's wrong ethically, and he can never do that, and he'd be sinning spiritually, and so on. Finally, the pasuk says, the Torah says, "Vayi hayom vayovo lasod melachto." It was the day he came to do his work. What's the work that he had to do? One opinion in the Gemara says the work means the unholy work with this woman. He went, in his mind, he was going to give in. He was going to give in. He was going to do the sin. What happens? As he's with the woman, about to consort with her, an image comes in his mind. Demus diukno shalovov, the image of his father. And that image of his father is so powerful that it gives him the inner resolve to refuse temptation and to run out and to stay strong. A terrible temptation, a terrible situation, but in the last moment, he's able to use his little bit of strength left and run out and stay strong, stay true to his values. What's the story with Yehuda? The story with Yehuda is that, very, very interesting. Yehuda gets married, he has a son, he has a second son, a third son. And the Torah tells us his oldest son was Ra Be'enei Hashem, was evil in the eyes of Hashem. The Torah doesn't tell us why. It says he was evil in the eyes of God. And what happens? He had gotten married. This man had gotten married, and God puts him to death. This woman, his wife, marries the second brother. It's a concept in Torah called levirate marriage. Marries the second brother, and the second brother also is found to be evil, and he also dies. You would think this man, Yehuda, is supposed to be the leader of the Jewish nation, a great spiritual leader. He has two sons that the Torah says are evil in the eyes of God. You're done. You raise your children, they're evil. What's going on over here? What's wrong in your education that you have children like this? But you know what? It's not held against him. What happens next is something shocking. He consorts with his daughter-in-law. Now, the Talmud and the commentaries explain it wasn't just some case of incest or something like that. There was a meaning behind it and so on. But on a certain level, it's regarded as a sin. And Yehuda has to do tshuva for this. Yosef, terrible temptation, is able to hold strong. Yehuda, temptation, does not hold strong. The first message of leadership is you have to go through your challenges. Your challenges don't mean there's something wrong with you. Your challenges don't mean that you're out of the picture. No, it's how you deal with your challenges. It's how you deal with your circumstances. Circumstances may be beyond your control. The reason for certain temptations might be beyond your control. It's fine. It's what you do with the situation, either to stay strong or once you've failed. Not only that, who are Yosef and Yehuda, these two leaders? We're told that at the end of days, when Mashiach comes, there'll be two Mashiachs, two Messiahs. Mashiach from the house of Yosef, Mashiach from the house of David. Who comes first? First comes the Mashiach from Joseph, but he doesn't lead us to the finish line. The one from David is the one that leads us to the finish line. David is from Yehuda, from Judah. In other words, we would think Yehuda, even if he's not out of the running, he's clearly not as great as Yosef. Yosef held strong. Yehuda did not. On the contrary, Yehuda is the one who makes it to the finish line. Why? Because he dealt with his situation and he grew from it. He did the tshuva. He took responsibility. He didn't deny his situation. He didn't excuse it. He didn't come up with reasons why it's not his fault, it's beyond him. It's his parents' fault, it's this one's fault. No. I need to take responsibility. The Torah tells us that he stood up and he said, Tzodka mimeni, she's righteous. And he took responsibility, he admitted what he did. That's the first lesson in leadership. Take responsibility for your failures. Don't get overwhelmed by them. Don't give in as a result of them. Don't give up. Take responsibility and move on. Lesson number 1. What happens? Let's go back to Yosef. Yosef, after being accused of attempting to rape the wife of his boss, is put in jail. He's in jail. While in jail, he sees two butlers who are also in jail, and he sees they look very distraught. So what does he do? He goes over, he says, what's wrong? What's wrong? How can I help you? There's a problem, jump in and do something about the problem. Like the famous statement from one of the great historians, what does it take for evil to flourish? All it takes is for good men to do nothing. Good men do nothing, then evil will flourish. You see something going wrong, jump in. You see somebody who needs help with something, don't just walk by. I know of a woman who grew spiritually in her life in a tremendous way. And she worked in an organization with many rabbis, but she said one particular rabbi had the greatest impact on me. He inspired me to grow. Someone asked her why. She said, because he would come in the morning and say, good morning, how are you? And he would wait for a response. So often we're not really interested in other people. We feel like we can't be weighed down by people. We go through the social niceties of life, but don't get me involved. No. A leader says there's a problem. How can I help? What can I do about it? He interprets their dreams, and one of the butlers gets released from prison and put back into the king, working for the king. Pharaoh, the king, has two dreams, very disturbed. The butler says, Joseph, the Hebrew slave, he knew how to interpret my dream. Pharaoh immediately has him brought to him. He tells him the dreams, and Joseph interprets them. What does he do next? He doesn't just interpret the dream. The dream being telling him that there are going to be 7 years of plenty coming and then 7 years of famine. He doesn't tell that. He says, well, this is what you need to do. You need to appoint somebody to store all that food during the years of plenty and wealth. And that way you'll have food and storage houses to make it through the years of the deprivation and difficulty. In other words, he comes up with a solution. There are so many people who can tell you why things are not going to work. So many people. No, it's not going to work for you in that marriage. It's not going to work for you as a parent. It's not going to work in that job. It's not going to work. That business is not going to take off. That dream is not going to happen. So many people. That's not leadership. Sure, you need the naysayers to be able to realize what the challenges are, but it's not about that. Leadership is, how are we going to make it work? What are we going to do? I once had a man who was working with me who, every time I'd come up with an idea of a program we're going to do to impact the Jews of Plano and so on, he would come up with 10 reasons why it wasn't going to work. And finally, my reaction was, you know what? I don't need to pay you to tell me why things are not going to work. I need someone to tell me how things are going to work. That's leadership. Yosef says immediately how things are going to work. He comes up with a solution. But Yehuda does something similar and a little further. Yehuda, let's take a step back. The Jacob and his children are in the land of Canaan, and there's no food, and there's a famine. It's during the 7 years of deprivation. There's no food. So what does Yaakov say? Yaakov says, I heard that there's food in Egypt. Go down to Egypt. So the brothers go down to Egypt. 10 of the brothers. Obviously, Joseph's already in Egypt, and Binyamin, the youngest one, they leave home because they're worried what might happen to him. The 10 brothers come in. They go to Yosef. Yosef recognizes them. They don't recognize him. He immediately starts saying, you're spies. I don't believe you. I'm going to keep you in prison, and so on. Finally, he says, you know what? In the midst of the story, they tell him about their youngest brother. He says, I have to meet your younger brother to see if the story's true. One of you stay here. The rest of you go up. Bring your brother. They go back. And they tell Yaakov what happened, and Yaakov's devastated. They're going to have to go down with Binyamin. Who knows what's going to happen to Binyamin? And finally, first he says no. And then a little while later he says, you got to go get food. And Yehuda says, well, we got to take Binyamin. And one of the other brothers tries to pacify Yaakov and make him feel comfortable, and his resolution is immediately dismissed. So what does Yehuda say? Anochi ervenu. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to be the one responsible for Binyamin. If anything happens, it's on me. Alai, like they say in Israel, it's on me. I'm going to take responsibility. And with that, he goes down, and that's the beginning of the salvation. Yehuda comes up with a solution. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, when writing about Yosef, says that's one of the lessons of leadership. Come up with solutions. But there's a difference, I believe, between the story of Yosef and the story of Yehuda. Yosef says you need to find somebody with these qualities to oversee this whole operation, but he does not offer his services, which seemingly is out of humility. Maybe you have somebody else who's more worthy. I don't know if I can do it. Yehuda, on the other hand, does not say, Dad, we need to take Binyamin down. Let's find someone who can take responsibility. He doesn't do that. You know what Yehuda does? He takes responsibility. So now on one level, it looks like Yosef's being more humble, and Yehuda's maybe being perhaps a little cocky or arrogant or overconfident. I'm going to do it. I believe that's a mistake. The Hebrew word for humility is anava. And Maimonides, the Rambam, points out that the word anava is connected to the word aniya, which means to respond. You know what humility is? Humility is not saying, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, let somebody else, I don't have these strengths. No, that's not humility. Humility is saying, I'm good enough, I have those strengths. I know I'm intelligent enough, I'm capable enough, I'm charismatic enough, I'm organized enough, I'm creative enough, I can do it. But I know that where did I get that creativity or that know-how or that sensitivity or that vision? It came from Hashem. Hashem endowed me. God endowed me with those qualities. But now that He did, I need to use them for the right reason. I cannot sit on the sidelines. I need to get up and do because of what's been given to me. Yosef has humility on one level where he says, this is what you need to do. You need to find this person. When Paro asks him, he then steps up, but he doesn't offer the service initially. Yehuda says, no, I know I'm the guy for the job. I know I'm the one. I'm not arrogant. I'm aware of my strengths and aware of how I have to use them. It'd be easier for Yehuda. You know what type of stress he's putting on himself, saying, I'm going to be the one responsible to bring your son back to you, Dad? The stress, the responsibility, what happens if it doesn't work out? He has everything on the line. Would have been the easiest thing, but Yehuda says, you know what? I know I'm the man for the job. I'm going to do it. That's a leader. And in fact, the name Yehuda is an amazing name. In Hebrew, Yehuda is spelled Yud and Hey and Vav, Daled and Hey. Which, if you take out the Daled, all you're left with is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, which is the name of God, the Tetragrammaton, the creator of the world. Yehuda says, all I am is I'm the name of Hashem. I'm a vehicle of Hashem, plus a Daled. Daled means dalut, means poverty, means I have nothing of my own. All I am is a vehicle for Hashem. All the confidence Yehuda displays, the leadership, the no second guessing, that's not coming from arrogance. That's coming from humility, because humility is I know I'm that good because Hashem gave it to me, and therefore I have a responsibility to act. I have to respond to the talents that were given to me by getting into action. Leadership is don't be destroyed, don't be devastated by your failures. Grow from your failures, acknowledge them, learn from them. When you see a problem, get involved, jump in, and be the solution. Whether it means offering a solution or actually being that solution. I believe these are tremendous lessons for leadership, and we are all leaders. Whether you're a leader in your house, whether you're a leader amongst your friends, whether you're a leader at work, whether you're a leader in your Jewish community, wherever it is, you're a leader. Now, leaders don't necessarily say, this is how it's going to go, listen to me. Leaders you might create an aura and a persona that causes people to speak a certain way around you and not a negative way. Or for people to be kinder around you. Or for people to take cues from how they should speak to their spouse or their children. Or for your spouse and your children to take cues from you, how to act and relate in life and how to relate to others. We're all leaders. Let's take the lessons of leadership. Learn from your failures, acknowledge them and learn from them. When something's wrong, something's going on out there, jump in, get involved, and be the solution. Have a wonderful Shabbos. I look forward to seeing your leadership in action.